and it was obvious to them but not obvious to the trained professionals, makes no sense. And obviously that's why this case is what it is. But let's bring in our think tank tonight, because I have some questions for the think tank regarding the trial of these 4 officers. Let's introduce our guest tonight. Joining us, Renee Hill, great criminal defense attorney in the Bronx. Also with us, Lawrence Zimmerman, Atlanta, Georgia, great criminal defense attorney, and is the president of the Criminal Defense Attorney Association of Georgia. Also with us, Krista Ramey from Los Angeles, great trial attorney. All right, folks, let's start with the video. Renee Hill, will it be admissible at trial, and what does it prove?
Well, it'll definitely be admissible at trial, Vinnie. This is from the body cam of the officers that were involved in this, that were on the scene. This is discoverable material. It will be admissible at trial. And what it's going to show is the reaction of the crowd, what they were able to see, and how the officers were behaving so nonchalantly, and how they were throwing out such, sarcastic remarks, and just having a complete disregard for Mr. Floyd's life.
Lawrence Zimmerman, does this video help prove aiding and abetting murder for the officers who's wearing this camera, Officer Tutao?
If we're going to base it just on watching this video, it is definitely not helpful for this officer. Don't do drugs, kids. Being real flippant and laughing. It wasn't. I mean, there's no kids out there. They're all adults. Why would you even say that? And that other gentleman kept saying, check his pulse. He can't breathe. What are you doing? It was some jujitsu move. I train in the same place you guys do. Get off his neck. It's pretty bad. I mean, I watched a video several times. It was pretty disgusting, honestly. It does not help that police officer in the defense. I don't think so, based on just the video.
All right, Krista Ramey, let's get a little more specific now. What exactly does it prove? Aiding and abetting, okay? He's got to be, in his mindset, he has to believe that Chauvin is committing a crime, and in his mind, what he is doing is, my purpose right now is to help him commit the crime. Do you believe that's what his intention is in his actions that we're seeing through his body cam?
I think that we saw a lot of that, actually, Vinnie. What we saw is a point in time, which was particularly troubling for me, is when Officer Tao went to the back of the vehicle to get the hobble device. I don't know if our viewers know what a hobble is, but when the victim is in a prone position and he's being tied up by his legs, and then that is then connected to the back of his handcuffs behind his back, and he's laying on his chest with a knee in his neck. Before he got out of the car, this man was telling everybody he couldn't breathe. He was clearly having a panic attack. This evidence of this officer going to get this hobble device, to me, is one of the most profound pieces of evidence that I saw in this video. It shows that there was reckless disregard for Mr. Floyd's life.
Okay, wait. Let me hold you right there. Reckless disregard, different than murder, right? Reckless disregard. They've got to prove that Chauvin intended to assault him. He knew that Chauvin intended to assault him, and he knew his actions would help aid Chauvin assault him, because it's kind of like a felony murder case. Is that what you're saying? Or are you saying this is reckless behavior, or is this intentional behavior?
I think this is intentional behavior, Vinnie. What I saw with getting that hobble device, there is a lot of evidence out there. I've had these cases against police officers. When someone cannot breathe and you are hobbling them, that's hog tying in common vernacular, with their chest to the ground and their arms like hoisted behind their back with their legs tied to those arms tightly. This is very specific. And when someone is saying they can't breathe and this is what you want to do to them, you want to hobble them, this is horrific to me.
Renee Hill, how did the prosecution prove his intent? His intent was to help someone who he knew had the intent of hurting and assaulting George Floyd. Put it together for me.
they're going to be able to show that Officer Tao knew what his fellow officer was doing. He was there. He helped when they were trying to get him into the police car initially, but then now he's involved because he's keeping the civilians on the sidewalk. He's even pushing some of them back at certain times, keeping them away, preventing them from getting closer to Mr. Floyd and the other officers. So he is acting in concert with those
Is
officers.
he doing that?
Allow...
Is he doing that because he wants to? Is he doing that to further allow Chauvin to commit a crime? Is that his purpose? To make sure that Chauvin can complete his crime?
Absolutely, because
okay.
he knew what Chauvin was doing. Everyone out there could see that Chauvin was on his neck. The people were screaming, and Mr. Floyd was screaming. And yes, so he knew what was happening. Absolutely.
Lawrence Zimmerman, prosecutors will argue that he knew Chauvin was committing a crime. He intended to allow him to continue to commit that crime while he is holding off a crowd of 8 people with video cameras.
You know, Vinnie, my problem
is that the argument?
Is, yeah, I mean, my problem is he just doesn't seem to really care about much, and he's just making snide remarks. People are concerned. Crowds gathering, they're upset, they're watching what's going on, and he just doesn't care. He's just letting Chauvin do whatever he wants. I mean, I just have problems. I'm sure there's more to the story, maybe. I don't know. I haven't seen all the evidence, but it doesn't look good on
I
that
think
video.
everyone has a problem with, Lawrence, everyone's got a problem with all 4 officers. I'm trying to take this thing into the courtroom and trying to get a conviction, and I know I've got to prove the intent here. Are you seeing evidence of the actual intent to knowingly aid and abet and say, listen, I know Chauvin is committing a crime. I want to make sure my actions aid and help him and do everything I can to make sure he can commit that crime? Are you seeing that? Is that an argument the jury is going to believe beyond a reasonable doubt?
I think the prosecution is going to make the argument that his lack of care for what's going on, his just blasé attitude is his intent, and he's aiding and abetting him by just acting like so nonchalant that nothing's going on for 10 minutes while there's a guy on his neck. He say, I can't breathe the whole entire time. And it's kind of ridiculous. Yeah, that's going to be their argument, and maybe they'll prove it that way.
But it was more than
that. He has a duty
maybe.
to protect and serve. He didn't help the situation by keeping the crowd away and by allowing Chauvin to behave the way that he did. He didn't try to stop him. He didn't try to move the officer over, tell him, lift up off of his neck. He didn't do any of that. He absolutely aided and abetted by allowing Chauvin to continue to behave in that manner, by not stopping him, and by keeping the crowd away.
But it's more than that. He was actually assisting. He was actually assisting him, though. It's more than just being nonchalant or not caring. He was assisting. That is what I saw in this video. I saw assistance. And so for the aiding and abetting crime, I think the evidence is stronger by watching this video. You have a paramedic talking about check the pulse. And he's like, doesn't even give a crap. And then you watch these other videos that were released earlier in the week, and you know that they were concerned about it, and they realized that there was no pulse. But yet Chauvin continued to place his knee in George Floyd's neck. And so these officers were acting in concert. They knew what they were doing, and they were all assisting one another to make sure that goal was accomplished.
And what's with the joke? Don't do drugs, kids? What, he thinks he's like Bill Murray or something. I mean, it was just, that to me is just so offensive. I mean, that shows his intent right there. He doesn't care.
All right. We'll talk more about it, and we're going to hear from the 13th juror later on in the hour. We'll revisit it. In the meantime, when we come back, we're going to talk about, wow, the Golden State Killer. What an incredible trail of absolute murder and mayhem this man created over the course of 4+ decades. 50+ rapes, 13 murders. Now, finally, justice when we return.
Robert Louis Stevenson once said, "Sooner or later in life, everyone sits down to a banquet of consequences." This is that day for Joseph DeAngelo.
DeAngelo, also known as the Golden State Killer. This is a guy over 4 decades wreaked havoc all around California. Julie Grant has more for us tonight.
Murder in the first degree. How do you plead?
Guilty.
Don't let his weak voice fool you. Joseph DeAngelo is as dangerous a criminal as one could ever find, terrorizing people across California and evading capture for 45 years.
Joseph DeAngelo isn't just the Visalia ransacker or the East Area rapist or the Golden State Killer. Having sat here today and listened and sat that night of his interview, he is the real-life version of Hannibal Lecter.
A sinister sociopath who prosecutors say fakes feeble incoherence, using a wheelchair now, but not before his arrest in April of 2018.
Detectives observed DeAngelo vigorously working on his yard, jumping in and out of his truck and lifting heavy objects. Just a week before, he was seen racing his motorcycle on the freeway at high rates of speed. Now, sitting in the interview room, he feigned feeble incoherence.
In June of 2020, DeAngelo pleaded guilty to 13 murders and 13 kidnappings, spanning 6 California counties. District attorneys gave summations of the heinous facts of each case.
DeAngelo bound the wrists and ankles of both and raped Patrice. DeAngelo then murdered both Keith and Patrice in the first degree by bludgeoning each of them multiple times in the head.
As part of the plea, DeAngelo also admitted to uncharged crimes.
I admit.
Including at least 50 rapes between 1975 and 1986 that are beyond the statute of limitations.
His crimes left a lifetime of scars and pain for our victims and for their families.
The 74-year-old is also a Vietnam War veteran and, most shockingly, a former police officer.
He is a cruel, intelligent, sadistic serial killer. He is pure sociopath. He is a master manipulator.
DeAngelo was identified as a suspect through familial DNA. One of his relatives was registered on a genealogy website.
Using an empty garbage truck, detectives collected trash discarded by Joseph DeAngelo from his garbage can, which was placed on the public street for collection. The Sacramento County District Attorney Crime Lab tested tissue found in that trash and developed a DNA profile that matched not only the defendant, but also matched the DNA profile of the perpetrator in 3 Contra Costa rapes and 8 murders in Southern California.
The numerous cases against DeAngelo were consolidated. In exchange for his guilty pleas and admissions and waiving his rights to appeal, prosecutors took death off the table.
We now have moved this monster, not simply from just being caught, to now standing convicted.
COVID-19 and concerns with elderly witnesses were major considerations that factored into the weighty decision to recommend consecutive life sentences for the Golden State Killer.
This has been a very long journey for justice. This journey of passion and persistence finally led to this day of reckoning.
Before he receives his sentence, the survivors of his crimes and family members of those murdered will get to look him in the eye and say their piece.
You know, it's hard to believe that there are real people like this. Hannibal Lecter was the comparison, and these are movies that we watch, but there are actual human beings like this. Let's bring back in our think tank. Krista Ramey, you're out there in California. The Golden State Killer, county after county, decade after decade, and finally some justice here. To me, though, it's just so hard to believe that there are humans like this that actually exist.
This is particularly important to me, not just because I'm a Californian, but I'm a victim of violent crime. My aunt was murdered. And the fact that this judge is going to allow these victim impact statements, I think, is hugely important for the family. To be able to talk about how this impacted not only your life, but your family's life, and what this person was that is no longer with you is so hugely important. We know what his sentence is going to be. But the fact that we get to hear and he has to listen to these victims talk is important. He doesn't have much life left in him. So I'm grateful that this judge is allowing this to play out the way it's playing out.
Yeah, Renee, part of the deal, I hate making deals with people like this, but part of what they were able to get was him to admit to some things that the statute of limitations had run on. So you're concluding some cases, getting some level of, okay, he's responsible for this, and this.
Right.
At the end of the day, though, I mean, this guy for 40 years is able to get away with it. And as a former police officer, I've got to think that helped him a lot.
Oh, I'm sure it did. As a former police officer, he knows the ins and outs. He knows how a case is going to be investigated, what officers or investigators are going to be looking for. So it gave him, the inside track, so to speak, to be able to continuously commit these crimes and go undetected for so many years. And, it's just absolutely horrific. He was a one-man crime spree, 13 murders, 50 rapes, all the other things that he admitted to. And because of the potential problems that the prosecutors could have had with some things, the elderly witnesses, they needed to make a deal here that they thought was best for the prosecution and for the family of these victims so that they could have closure. And that's what they're getting. And like Krista said, they're going to have the opportunity to speak, to give their victim impact statements. Despite the fact that they know what the sentence is going to be, it will give them that closure to be able to state how this has affected them and impacted their lives.
Yeah, Krista, the other thing is this guy with his little feeble routine, right? He's out riding his motorcycle, then all of a sudden he's under arrest, and all of a sudden he needs a wheelchair, he doesn't understand anything, he's drooling. I mean, it's so transparent.
You see that a lot, don't you? I mean, we saw it with Harvey Weinstein. We see that a lot. Once they're caught and they're all of a sudden they're weak, and so I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
I mean, it's the stress. It's the stress of the case once the arrest comes down, and that affects the body. And so, they start to break down. And we saw it with Harvey, and I don't think Harvey was faking when he needed the walker. He was having problems, but it's stressful once you get arrested.
Thank God it is, right?
Yeah, this guy's a faker, though. This guy's an absolute faker because he's done it before. When he got arrested, when he was still a cop, he feigned a heart attack to try to get out of it. But that's who he is. Anyhow, let's put him in the rearview mirror, although we still have the sentencing coming up next week, and we'll be covering that. When we come back, I want to look forward to a case that's on the docket here on Court TV. A tragic story. A young dad going to the movies with his wife. The babysitter's at home with their daughter and gets into an argument with a guy. He's a retired police captain. Argument ends up with the young dad getting shot and killed in the movie theater. We'll preview that trial when we return.
You had to contact him. He wasn't bothering you.
I believe I had made that fairly clear, didn't I? Did you not understand that I was trying to settle down? If there was any hurt feelings, I was trying to resolve them or end them so that he could enjoy his movie and I could enjoy mine.
On the docket tonight, the movie theater murder trial. This involves a man named Curtis Reeves. He's a retired police captain going to the movies with his wife. Well, there's another couple in the row in front of them also going to see the movie, Lone Survivor. And apparently there's a little bit of an argument because the couple in front, younger, have a young child with a babysitter. So during the previews, they were just checking in on the text message to make sure the baby was okay. Get into an argument, things escalate, and somehow, some way, Curtis Reeves pulls out his gun and shoots that dad, one shot, dead in the theater. Julie Grant has more.
It's been 6 years since a cell phone, popcorn, and a pistol permanently changed the lives of a small family in suburban Tampa, Florida. Chad Olson loved spending time with his wife, Nicole, and their 22-month-old baby girl, Alexis. Friends and family say Olson was a genuine, funny, go-getter type of guy. On January 13th, 2014, Chad and Nicole Olson were sitting in a theater waiting for a movie to start. And as the previews were rolling, Chad was on his phone, texting their babysitter to check on baby Alexis. This security video shows the man sitting behind them, Curtis Reeves, objecting to Chad using his phone, and the two start arguing. Then Reeves went to complain to the management. Here's Nicole Olson recalling Reeves' demeanor that night.
I see you've put your phone away now that I went to get management. I remember feeling this should have been over. He's got what he wanted. Why is he still doing the, haha, you did what I told you, I won? That's kind of how it felt to me.
Witnesses told police that the argument continued when Reeves returned to his seat. In a recorded audio police interview, Nicole describes what happened next.
My husband said, dude, what's your problem? You know, I wasn't making any noise. The movie hasn't even started, and that's all I remember.
Then the argument went from loud to lethal. Reeves, a retired Tampa police captain, claims he feared for his life after Nicole's husband threw a bag of popcorn at him. In his police interview, Reeves said Olson stood up and hit him in the face with an unknown object. Let's watch that again, slowed down. You can see what looks like Olson's arm make a very quick motion toward Reeves. Here's how Reeves remembers the incident.
Get out of my face. I'm leaning all the way back in my chair as far as I can to get away from him, and suddenly he's virtually on top of me. And I think I'm saying either no, 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 or whoa, whoa, whoa. Suddenly my head was to the right, so he hit me with something.
And that's when Reeves pulled his pistol from his pocket and fired one shot at Olson.
I did not see him pull it out, and I did not see him shoot it. I just saw the spark and heard the noise.
43-year-old Chad Olson was taken to the hospital where he later died. Curtis Reeves was charged with second-degree murder. He says he shot in self-defense. At a hearing in 2017, Reeves' attorney tried to prove that this was a stand-your-ground case. The controversial Florida law allows people to use deadly force when they fear death or personal bodily harm.
A 6'4" individual standing, trying to come over that chair is terrifying.
But the judge ruled that the stand-your-ground defense does not apply in this case.
If I had it to do over again, it would never have happened.
Now, Curtis Reeves is set to go on trial for second-degree murder.
All right, so the stand your ground didn't work, the immunity hearing, but that doesn't stop him from making the same arguments in front of a jury instead of a judge. Let's bring in our think tank still with us. Renee Hill, Krista Ramey, and Lawrence Zimmerman now joining us. Oh, there we go. We got him back. All right, he was gone for just a short while. Lawrence, let me start with you. Stand your ground doesn't work, but looking at what happened that day, do you think Curtis Reeves can convince a jury that he needed to pull that weapon, that he needed to shoot this father after the father seemingly reached from that row in front of him and tossed the popcorn at him, and he didn't know what was coming at him?
I don't know, Vinnie. It's such a strange case. This is a problem like stand your ground laws. It really gives people the ability to shoot somebody and claim they are afraid. I think the problem that Curtis Reeves has is he's a former police officer, trained using the weapons his career, and he was terrified by a bag of popcorn. It's hard for me to tell in the video if Olson really did hit him with something or not. I mean, legitimately, if he did hit him with something, I guess he could be in fear. I think it's a very tough road for his lawyers to really show he was in fear for his life based on everything you know about Reeves and being a police officer and what Olson did. Why was he in fear for his life? Did Olson screaming, I'm going to kill you, or I'm going to kill you with a bag of popcorn? I'm going to shove butter down your throat. It's sick. I like to cobble defense for him because I'm a criminal defense lawyer. It's just very, very hard, I think, based on what we see.
Renee Hill, he testified in his own behalf during the immunity hearing, not successfully because the judge didn't necessarily buy it. Will a jury buy it?
I don't believe a jury's going to buy it, Vinny. His demeanor is deplorable. He's sitting there, just not caring at all that he took a man's life over popcorn being thrown in his face. The video, it's very difficult to see if Mr. Olson actually stood up as he claims and was, standing. He certainly wasn't standing over him because we would be able to see that in the video. But his demeanor, he's not personable at all. So he couldn't sell it to the judge. And I certainly don't believe he's going to be able to sell it to a jury, that he was in fear of his life sitting in the movie theater. This man was sitting with his wife. I don't see it. And, I would like to try to paint some sort of a defense, in cases like this. But certain things you just can't. And his demeanor is not helpful to him at all. Not at all.
So, Vinnie, can I jump in here, Vinnie?
Go ahead.
Real quick. Yeah, real quick. I think that the problem here is first of all, let me start by saying I think that the Florida stand your ground law is stupid, but it's also very effective. And we all saw what happened in the Zimmerman case. Not this Zimmerman, this lovely man that's with us tonight, but it is a very specific law that is very effective in Florida, and it is in the states where it is enacted. So I'm not so sure that this is just going to be a perfect case for the prosecution. The thing that the prosecution has going for him is that the defendant already has taken the stand, and that testimony can be used against him later. In the George Zimmerman case, George Zimmerman did not choose to do what was done in this particular case, where they did the pretrial ruling to decide whether it was a matter of law where the case would just get dismissed outright. They waited for the jury in that case.
What's his fear?
Yeah, big difference. Let's put that video. Can we put the video up one more time and just take a closer look at it? Because there's an actual video of the shooting that exists. Obviously, it's you got to look in the little corner of the video. Just barely picks it up. You only see Curtis Reeves. But the bottom line, you do kind of see something fly in there. Lawrence, is a jury going to study this video and try to figure out what happened based on this? Or do you think they're going to listen to the testimony of Reeves and the testimony of perhaps the victim's wife?
Yeah, well, obviously a good jury is going to view all the evidence, the video, his statement, and listen to the wife and put it all together. I'm watching the video. It's hard to see. It looks like someone threw a punch or something at Reeves. But even if you throw a punch, does that make you in fear of bodily injury or fear for your life? Just one punch? I mean, unless it got on the ground or something, I don't. It's just a tough. Even to understand your ground, I think it's tough. There has to be more here than what I'm seeing just on the video. I mean, this is a former police officer. I mean, he's really that afraid? I mean, I know he's older, but so what? I don't know.
Yeah, I look at this and
he's not a little guy
yeah.
either.
Yeah, exactly, Renee. He's really tall.
Yeah, Reeves looks to be like a big guy himself. So the theory that he was so frightened and so afraid to the point that he had to pull out his gun. And then, like Lawrence said, this is an experienced retired police officer. But we know from other discussions about this case, I think that he had problems with other moviegoers in that same theater prior to that date, I believe. So I'm sure that's going to come out during the course of the trial as well. He was looking for a reason.
Yeah, he's a retired police captain. He was a retired police captain, but then he became the cell phone movie police after that, unofficially.
Yeah.
And I think it's going to be his downfall. I think everyone is spot on with his personality is not going to help him. But again, a case that's on the docket here on Court TV. Let's take a look at the next court hearings coming up in Florida versus Curtis Reeves. We've got September 14th, 2020. September 14th, 2020. We've got a status hearing and then the trial on April 5th, 2021. There we go. April 5th, 2021 will be the trial date. So we'll continue to follow here on Court TV, obviously, and letting you in on the latest. When we come back, time to hear from you, the 13th juror. New video released in the George Floyd case, posted it up on social media. The response overwhelming once again. We'll take a look at your verdict when we come back.
All right, we're done.
You circled
okay,
me like in a jiu-jitsu move, bro. You try to his breathing right there, bro.
Okay.
Like, you don't think that what it is, bro? You don't think nobody understands that right there, bro? I trained at the academy, bro. That's some
You did. Okay.
Right,
And do you understand?
bro.
All right.
I'm a firefighter from Minneapolis.
Bro, look, well, you should check on him. He's not responsive right now.
Back off.
He's not responsive.
Get off the street before you run. Okay. Then you wouldn't know.
He's
Get off
not
the street.
responsive right now. He's not responsive right now, bro.
Does he have a pulse?
No, bro, look at him. He's not responsive right now, bro.
You have ambulance coming.
Bro, are you serious? He gonna just let him sit there with that on his neck, bro?
Pulse.
Is he breathing right now? Check his
How long
pulse.
we have this conversation?
Check his pulse.
Okay.
Check his pulse,
All
Tal.
right.
Tal, check his pulse. Tal, check his pulse, bro. Bro, check his pulse, bro. You bogus, bro.
Don't do
you
drugs,
bogus.
guys.
Don't do drugs, bro. What is that? What do you think that is? You call what he doing okay?
Allegedly, he was in the police academy, so allegedly.
Oh, okay. Of course.
And then the other one, the other lady over there is a firefighter, so of
course.
Allegedly.
This video very revealing as to what was happening at the scene. This is the body cam footage from Officer Tao. He was the one doing sort of the crowd control during this entire ordeal where George Floyd, in the view of everyone, is lifeless, absolutely lifeless. And that's for like 4 minutes. Nothing happens. The officers don't change what they're doing. What they were doing when they were first restraining him, as he's talking and his feet are moving, and then, nothing. He passes out, he dies. And they're still doing the same thing that they were doing beforehand. Makes no sense to anyone. Anyhow, posted it today. Social media response, incredible. We begin with our 13th juror. Comment of the day today coming from Norma, who writes, when the officer asked the lady if she was a real EMT or firefighter, she was a trained person and recognized that something was wrong and even stepped forward to maybe assist. I thought the officer was going to let her, but instead warned her to get back on the sidewalk is just beyond me. I can understand why they wouldn't allow the rest of the people, but a trained EMT, just don't understand that part of it. Renee Hill, how different would this have been if George Floyd, all of a sudden not responding anymore, and the officers change what they do, and they try to revive him? Is this a different story? Is this a different case?
Yeah, it's absolutely a different case. If they recognized, or stopped the actions that they were doing, if he took his knee off of his neck, if he tried to revive him, if he tried to give some sort of assistance to acknowledge the fact that he was killing this man, because that's exactly what he was doing. But if he had stopped those actions and changed actions to try to assist in helping him, then it would be a different case. It certainly wouldn't be a murder charge at that point. There may have been an excessive force, there may have been the assault charges, and then, of course, if Mr. Floyd still passed away, it could have been just manslaughter charges. But this was murder. We can see that. But certainly it would be different if they had changed their actions.
Judy writing tonight, bystanders could see what was happening. Man killed in front of them. Officers not paying attention to the crowd. Restraining a man that is no longer struggling. Lawrence, let me go same question to you. But I want to put it this way. If after he's not responding, he has passed away and they try to revive him unsuccessfully, does it change in your mind also? Because the actions that they took his life. You take someone's life and then you try to revive them. Does that change the murder charge here? Would that change things in your eyes?
It may give them a better argument to say it wasn't intentional. Look, we tried to save him. It was an accident. Maybe they come with an accident defense that maybe it was negligence. And oh my God, we're going to do CPR, get this EMT over here, do everything they can to save his life. And we see that. It certainly gives them a much better defense than they have right now. didn't care, walked away, didn't let an EMT help. She said she was a firefighter.
But I think the timing would be still very, very important, depending upon how long, they were kneeling on him and then, oh my gosh, let me stop, let me try to help him. But if they just continuously did it to the end and then said, oh, let me try to help him after he's already gone, then that's a big difference as well.
Right. That's like, you got caught. Oh, crap. Let me try to fix it now.
Right.
That doesn't really change what you did leading up to that fact.
Right.
Edie tonight writing, people begging for them to get off him. They are wrong for not listening. They could have stopped. This is, from my perspective, Krista, this is a video that is going to get a jury so angry. So incredibly angry. I mean, the other videos are bad. I mean, and are awful. This one, though, it takes you to the spot and it almost puts the jury in the crowd with the rest of the people.
Yes, it does. And, it's the best eyewitness testimony you have, right? It is not someone trying to remember anything. You are watching it as if you were there. I think that's why many of us cry or get so emotional when we watch this video. And, of course, a jury is going to feel the same way. They're going to have that welling up of emotion in there and thinking, oh my God, at all of these points along the way, everything could have changed and this could have been a totally different outcome. Could you imagine a world that this didn't happen, where this wasn't as bad as it was? It just changed everything, that they wouldn't listen to anything. And they had to have known what they were doing.
All right. Krista Ramey, Renee Hill, Lawrence Zimmerman, always great to have you on the program. Really appreciate it. Have a fantastic weekend. Thank you so much. All right, folks, that does it for us this week here. Remember, Monday through Friday, 8 to 11, we're doing the job that other networks just aren't doing. They are obsessed with politics, and they're completely ignoring our system of criminal justice, which we are focused on day in and day out, night after night. I'm Vinnie Politan. Have a wonderful night, and as always, don't forget to hug the kids.